I'm gonna give you the Cliff Notes version of how to become a self-employed medical biller without any experience. However, I'm going to keep it real with you and tell you from the jump, from the giddy up, that this is gonna take continuous learning, continuously trying to figure things out, and by no means at all is this gonna be instant money. If you don't know who I am already, let me introduce myself. My name is Tamika. I'm a certified professional biller, a certified professional practice manager, and I am a full-time self-employed medical biller. Now, you might not even know what a medical biller is, and that's because if you've just been hearing about it, you don't have any experience, and maybe you've heard that it can make a lot of money or that it's easy to do. You can do it from home, you can do it remotely. That might have been intriguing to you, so you just want to find out what it is. Medical billing and medical coding, and I'm throwing in medical coding because it tends to get confusing and many people think it's the same thing. So I will link a video that I did above that goes through the differences of medical billing and medical coding deeper. But I'm just gonna say to you in this video what medical billing is. And medical billing is the process of receiving reimbursements from a third-party payer or a insurance company for claims that were submitted for services that were provided by a doctor, a healthcare professional, someone who can actually bill. As medical billers, we submit claims to these individuals or these companies so that the provider can get paid for the services. We also deal with patients where if everything is not covered by the third party or the insurance company, then the patient needs to pay their responsibility. Being a self-employed medical biller is a great beginner-friendly business, and I'm going to give you some reasons why. The first reason is because there is a low startup cost. And I can't give you an exact amount, but let me give you it for my example. When I started my medical billing business or became a self-employed medical biller where I got a business license, I had to pay $300 for my LLC. I'm in the U.S. Virgin Islands, so this amount changes. So you might be in Washington, D.C., and your LLC costs $200 or $100 or maybe even more. But it's usually not a high amount of money. Also, let's say something like your supplies. When I started out, because I like all the things and I usually have them, I had all of the supplies like a printer or a pens or a laptop. I had all of that already, so I didn't need to buy that. But if you need to buy that, then you would have to, get that. I would link above a video that I did talking about the things that you need and how much they may cost you. But pretty much in order to start this type of business, there is usually a low startup cost. The second thing is that, of course, you can work from home. You can work remotely. And that is something that seems to be very intriguing to many people now because everybody wants to work from home. So if you want to work from home or you want to have a business where you can be home, then medical billing or being a self-employed medical biller may be that option for you. Because we usually just use a computer or our laptop, the internet, maybe a printer. And these are the things that we need. So we don't need much and we don't have to have a physical location in order to do the work that we need to do. We also would definitely probably need a telephone as well. So these things are stuff that's mobile, they can move around. We don't have to necessarily be in the office of the provider when we are providing these services. Also, there is a flexibility to medical billing. I was just speaking to someone the other day and I was letting them know that I can do medical billing at 2:00 in the morning. I can do my billing, at 10:00 at night in the middle of the day, and that it's very flexible as to when I can get it done and I can still be efficient. I can still get it done on time. Because I've been a medical biller for such a long time as an employee, the 8 to 5, 9 to 6 time has been sticking or has stuck in my head as to when I need to do certain things. And I was telling this individual that I need to get that out of my head because being a medical biller, you can do this whenever you need to do it. There is a caveat because if you're working for a provider and maybe you are taking phone calls from patients, of course you can't take them at 2 o'clock, or they probably wouldn't be calling you at 2 o'clock. So if you're taking calls from patients, then you probably will have to take those calls within a certain time. Or if you need to call an insurance company, insurance companies, their hours have been very flexible as well. I know some insurance companies that are open till 6, 7 o'clock at night, but you can't call them 2 o'clock in the morning. So there are a certain duties that you may have to do where you have to do it within a specific time, but the majority of things that you do as a medical biller, you don't have to do it within a specific time. And then the last thing is there is a consistent demand. Even though I hear pretty often that I can't find a job as a medical biller, there are no providers that need me, all of those things, medical billing is needed. As long as you have doctors, and we do have doctors, and we have a good bit of doctors all over the world, then they are going to need medical billers. Yes, there are some doctors that do the billing themselves and they don't require medical billers, but for the most part, we have a lot of providers who need our services, and that is something that is going to be there for a long time, as long as we have providers and doctors to perform services on patients. So if you stick with being a self-employed medical biller, learning all that you need to learn, figuring out your mistakes and trying to work through this can actually be a great, legit work from home business that brings in a good amount of income. So let's jump into the steps that you can take to become a self-employed medical biller with no experience. And the first one is to learn the basics. You can become a medical biller and not necessarily know all the things. And I'm saying that because I became a medical biller not knowing all the things. Now, of course, if you've heard my story, I'll link that video as well. I had someone to train me for 2 weeks to learn billing, and 2 weeks is definitely not enough to learn everything you need to know about billing. However, it was enough for me to learn the basics of it, what I'm supposed to do, learn about the claim form and how to send out the claim forms to the insurance companies, and how to enter in the payments when I receive them back, and how to look at a patient's account, how to use whatever practice management system that they were using. In that 2 weeks, I was able to learn the basics of what I had to do as a medical biller, because after the young lady left, it was all on me. Yes, I had the doctors who've been there and they were established doctors, but they didn't do the billing. They didn't know what to do. I had my supervisor, but she didn't know what to do when it came to billing. So after those 2 weeks, I had to figure out what I was supposed to do, and I learned the basics of what I was supposed to do. After I had been a biller for a few years, actually, I went back and took a course. But if I had to do it all over again, I would have taken a course right after I was trained that 2 weeks. And I probably would have told my supervisor that they needed to pay for it because I paid for my own course. I would have asked them to pay for a course for me so that I can, feel more comfortable, learn the foundations, more of what I needed to know to become a great medical biller. So taking a course is one way that you can do it. You can also learn it on your own. You have places like YouTube. You have, books, because they do also have medical billing books that you can learn from. So they have different resources that you can use in order to learn medical billing and learn the basics. But learning the basics would be the first step that you need to take if you are trying to do this thing without any experience. I actually also have a video where I talk about the different ways that you can learn medical billing, so you can check out that video. The bottom line is that you need to learn the basics at least in order to become a self-employed medical biller. Don't waste any more time trying to figure out the answers to the questions in your head about becoming a self-employed medical biller. You can ask me. Be sure to schedule your remote one-on-one. I have 45-minute sessions and 90-minute sessions that will help you get your questions answered all in one place. The second thing I would do after learning the basics is I would decide whether or not I want to become certified or not. So becoming certified as a medical biller is not a mandatory thing. You don't have to do that. If you were deciding on becoming a medical coder, I would say make sure that you become certified or you get certified. But as far as with medical billing, you don't necessarily have to be a certified biller in order to become a self-employed biller, in order to get a job as a biller. You really don't have to be certified, but I would recommend being certified because that also helps boost your confidence in you knowing certain things about billing and you knowing the foundations and what you're supposed to do. So after you've taken a course or after you have self-learned medical billing, then I would decide, okay, I want to sit down for this test, for the certification, to make sure that I really know what I think I know. I probably wouldn't feel too comfortable if I just was self-taught with medical billing and I didn't have any experience, and then I said, oh, I'm going to take on a provider and do that. I might not feel comfortable doing that. And I know other people might not feel comfortable doing that. So being certified as a medical biller could help you boost that confidence in knowing that you know what you're doing and that you have sat for an exam and you have passed that exam. The third thing I would do is pick a niche. And when I talk about picking a niche, there are different ways to do that. Either I would pick the niche in the specialty that I am trying to bill for, or maybe it might be in the type of facility that it is. Hospital versus a private practice versus one provider versus two providers, or it might be a duty. I might decide that I want to just submit claims, or I want to just do AR or post in payments or whatever other duty you may have as a biller. I would decide on what my niche is going to be. So for example, if you decided that you wanted to be a biller for mental health, that's going to be your niche. If I had to recommend anything, I would recommend starting out with something that is small, especially because you have no experience in doing this at all. You don't want to take on a big, huge clinic that has 10 doctors and then you figure out that you don't know how to do it, you can't figure out how to do it, and you don't even like it, right? You don't want to be jeopardizing the provider's money or their revenue because you're trying to just figure out if this is something that you want to do. So I would take on smaller things. So if I'm deciding on niche by my specialty, I may take on something like mental health because they don't have many codes versus ophthalmology where there are a lot of codes and I have to learn even more. If I'm trying to take on something depending on, let's say, the place or the facility, I wouldn't try to bill for a hospital where there is going to be a lot of billing that you have to do. I might start small with a private practice with one doctor in the practice, or maybe even a provider who just started up their practice, because now both of you are learning and you don't have to feel like you're just completely left out. Right? So I would try and start off kind of small, but I would niche down so that I can stick to something and really try to learn that. When I first started out, I only billed for ophthalmology, right? I wasn't billing for ophthalmology and OBGYN and mental health, so then I had to learn all of these things. So I mastered ophthalmology. I mastered doing it. And that's what I'm trying to help you to do, especially because you don't have any experience, at least not for right now. Now, you definitely want to make sure that you set up your home office. It doesn't have to be an elaborate office. It doesn't have to be something that has in tons and tons of stuff, but you want to be ready for when you get a provider. You want to have at least your computer, your internet, a printer, a telephone. You want to make sure you have these things set up where you're going to do it because of the sensitive information that we have and we deal with every day. You want to make sure it's in an area that is not going to be where others can see it. You might need a file cabinet to lock this in. All of these things are going to be important. So you kind of want to set up your office, even if you don't have a client yet, even if you don't even know where you're going to get this client. You want to make sure that you have it set up just in case you get a client, you'll be ready to start billing. Doctors are not necessarily going to want you to, oh, well, I just don't have all of this ready yet. I need to get my laptop. If they want you to bill for them, they're probably going to want it now and soon, especially if they're seeing patients. So you want to be ready to handle it when it comes to you. And then you might be saying, I don't have any clients. I have done all of this. I know the basics. I've got certified. I've set up my office and picked my niche, but now I don't have any clients. What am I going to do? This is going to be your time to network. Now I have it in a list but you can actually be doing some of these things out of order, right? You don't necessarily have to do it in the order that I'm saying, or you can do them simultaneously. Meaning, as you are taking your class, as you are learning on YouTube, you can be out there networking, trying to see where these providers are, trying to see where their office managers are, where their staff is, where you can talk to people so that when you're ready to do the billing, when you're ready to have this thing done, you already have someone in mind. You already have someone that you can bill for. You can network in several different ways. First, you can network, let's say, in forums or groups. If you're a part of any of those Facebook groups or, those medical billing groups, I'm a part of those. There are many providers in those groups that actually reach out for billers, who look for people who can help them in their specialty, who might ask a question and then you can actually help and answer that question, and that would lead to them DMing you and asking you if you can bill for them. So you can network in that way. The next way you can network is reaching out. Now, if you don't have any experience, again, I wouldn't reach out to these big companies, but I would look for providers that are new, providers that are small, and I would start reaching out to them, talking to them. I got a question saying, oh, well, how do you even get to talk to the providers? I say providers, yes, because that's who are the people for the most part who's making the decisions. But I'm also talking about the office managers, their staff. Remember that the office managers may be the ones doing the billing, and if they are, it probably could be hard to get in to get your foot in the door as a biller. But if they're not the biller, there are a lot of office managers that are not the biller, but they're looking for a biller. Or if you know the front desk staff and you can speak to somebody at the front desk, and then that person at the front desk can speak to the provider, and that way they can get you in. So you might have to figure out different ways to get in. You really probably wouldn't be able to talk to the provider face to face unless you're like out networking at an event where the provider is actually there. And sometimes you have to put yourself in those predicaments where the provider is actually there. You have to put yourself out there. If you go to conferences about healthcare, about billing, about coding, providers do come there. And so then that's your opportunity also to reach out and speak to those providers. So there are different ways where you can talk to them, or you can talk to someone close to them, their staff, their spouse, front desk. Network, network, network. And the last way that you can also network, which can be a way to like offer discounts. So as you're there, speaking to them, maybe even speaking to their staff, you can decide, okay, I will do your billing for free for 2 months. Or as a new doctor, you decide that you will give him a trial version of your billing so that he can see what you can do first for a month or two. Now, I would not say to do that all the time, and I wouldn't say to, do it for a long period of time. But I would say maybe just to get your foot in the door with a provider, then you can offer them some type of free service or discount or something like that so that it can get you at least in the door with the doctor or with the, front desk staff or the office manager. Again, you don't have to speak directly to the provider. You can definitely speak to someone who is close in the organization, who can put in a good word for you, help you out. If you know the bookkeeper in that organization, that bookkeeper could put in a good word and that could get you a meeting with the doctor. So I know sometimes it feels like people are gatekeeping and they're keeping you from the provider, but you don't always have to talk to the provider in order to become a biller for the organization. And then you want to make sure that you have your prices and your billing agreement done so that you can have that ready if and when you get a provider. So as far as the billing agreement, it might not be perfect. It might not be, the best thing, but I would say to at least make sure that you have one and something that is signed. I always recommend having an attorney look it over, having someone who knows the legal stuff look it over. But if I'm being completely honest, when I first started out, I did not have a contract that was looked over by an attorney. Well, the first time I even did it, I didn't even have a contract, which I would not recommend. But then I got a contract and then it wasn't looked over by an attorney. But again, I would not recommend that because stuff was missing. There can be miscommunication and you don't want to play around with that. But if for some reason, I guess you have to do it that way, then do an agreement. Do an agreement at least where you know what you're supposed to be doing. They know what you're supposed to be doing. They know what they're supposed to be doing, because they also have a responsibility in this. It's not all about the biller, but you want something in writing so that you can agree upon stuff like the payment terms and how long, you know, the agreement is for. So if you decide that you're going to give them a discount for the first month and then you're going to start charging them $1,000 afterwards, then it needs to say that in the agreement so that it can be clear that everybody knows what is expected of them, and there wouldn't be any problems. And then of course, within that contract, you should also have your prices as far as what you're going to charge them. Now, there are different ways to charge. I would link a video talking about that above, how you can charge when it comes to medical billing services, but you want to make sure that you at least have an idea of it. I'm pretty sure that you're probably going to change it because I've changed my prices so many times. I have increased them over the years for different reasons, for different things. And so don't let the fact that you may not know what to charge stop you, but you have to start off charging something, or in order to grow and feel more confident, you need to start off charging something. So even if this price list is not the be all say all, it's not what you're going to keep forever, at least have something in mind so that when someone is there and they're asking about your services and how much they are, you can let them know what they are. So since you're new to medical billing and have no experience, I will link this playlist above for you. I go through the basics of medical billing, and it can help give you an idea of the things that you will need to know in order to become a self-employed medical biller. I'll see you again in my next video.